listen, the only time it's gonna be remanded, if it goes forward, it's gonna get kicked back at least one more time.
Why is this not working? There are some extra copies of the agenda if anyone's interested in one. They're over here before they get started.
Oh, thank you.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so the meeting, meeting order at 5:30.
Sam, try to speak up.
Speak up or look up?
Speak up.
Going to call the meeting to order at 5:31 p.m. First thing is to determine whether a quorum exists. And we have all four members here now, including our newest member, Mary Hall. We're very excited to have Mary here. So the first thing we have to do is review and approve the minutes of the 4/11/24 hearing, which was the permit for a garage on, the Beaupre's property. So I know Kat sent the minutes again fairly recently. So assuming there are no questions, did you?
I read it all, I was not present at the meeting.
Right, where was that? Oh. Oh, that's right, you were present virtually. Okay, working? I think that was one of the. We did have a forum, so she was at the forum
Because there were three members of that forum, the two of you were there.
Oh, that, yeah.
Was that just last April?
No, it was at 2020.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah,
okay.
it was a long
I remember
time.
it now.
Okay, so should we make a motion to?
I move to approve the
Yeah.
minutes from April
It's
11th, 2024.
second. All in favor? Okay, motion's passed, thank you, Ken. So the, next order is that we discuss new business, which is the election of officers. So, right now, we have as officers, I'm chair and Tad is secretary, but, anyone?
I nominate Sam McLean as chair.
I'm gonna nominate you, Chair.
I was
And I, should we have that?
You should second.
I second.
Okay, all in favor? Okay, so the motion's passed. I nominate Tad to be secretary.
I would like to second.
Okay, all in favor? Yay. Okay. So, the next thing we have is a hearing on remand from the Superior Court in the matter of Michael and Mary McKee versus the town of Shenango, Iowa. So I'm going to turn it over to you. This is our attorney, Mary Thompson.
Hey everybody, I'm just going to talk about the procedure here so we're all on the same page. This actually, in all reality, is a very, very narrow scope of what we're required to do tonight. The actual order from the court says, the portion of the appeal concerning good cause is remanded to the board for further facts relevant to the determination of good cause, including notice and time. That means that this board is looking back at the existing record, we're not making any new record, we're not taking any new evidence. We're looking at the existing record, 2022, from November 2022, and this issue was heard from this board. And looking at that then for the court's purposes, creating a list of findings that support this board's decision that's already been made, that is not going to be changed, not going to be revisited. They've already decided that the appellants met their standard for good cause and continuing the appeal. They're not revisiting that decision, they're not reconsidering it, they're just looking at the record and creating a new list of facts for the court so the court understands what they were looking at when they made the decision. The court, in its decision, talked about things such as there were no relevant dates noted. They did not talk about what the abutters were doing during that time. They didn't talk about facts that would lead the court to understand when they had notice of what was happening, sort of what the timeline of all of this was. So we will not be having any testimony tonight. The board will be talking about the facts. They've all looked at the record. I'm getting to look at the record. Both sides have already submitted what they think should be findings. We did not, thank you, but that wasn't quite necessary, but we have them. And so at this point, even though I know you're all here, we're not going to take any presentations, but I know the lawyers want to, justify their travel at some point. So if any of you want to object to what I've talked about in terms of procedure, I'm happy to hear it. But other than that, we're just going to proceed as the board and talk about the facts. And if you want to put objections on the record while we're doing that, if you think something is out of scope, you're more than welcome to do that, but we're not going to be taking presentations. I think you're all going to thank us for doing this procedure clearly. You don't want to be tied up. You're already briefed it. The judge is making her decision. You don't need a new record. We're not here to create a new record. We're here to just put facts on the record that already exists. So.
I'm Scott Dolan. I'm the law firm of Epsilon Martin, representing the keys. And I have filed one objection noting before this board, there were the appellants, Gallagher and Drews, in their lawyer's presentation. He raised a lot of allegations from outside the record that existed in 2022, and I've objected to those being included in the board's consideration, and I hope you all have a chance to see the submission. Also, I love the opportunity to be able to discuss some of the facts beyond what I've seen.
Thank you. We'll note that objection, but I would advise this board not to take any discussion of facts you have of the record, and that's going to be your record. You should not be creating new records or anything that would really mess up your appeal.
Yeah, my understanding is that the court asked us for 7 specific things,
Well,
and that we're really just looking at what was presented on November 2022. Nothing in addition, right?
so I, with regard to your objection to the materials that were submitted by the appellants that were, if any material was submitted by anybody that was after November 3rd or December 1st, when this record is closed, then this board will not. I advising this board to not consider anything that was submitted to this board that was outside the record.
Keith Richards for the Gallagher's and Drews. I would want to without restating what I've already submitted to the board for consideration, I respectfully disagree with your very capable attorney about whether or not you have the discretion to consider information. I actually don't think that we submitted anything that's really new, so much as embellishing, giving some specificities to general statements that were made at the November 3rd, 2022 hearing. So I would point to the court's procedural order. Or it's up to the board to make your own independent determination. I think that you have the discretion to decide whether you will or not entertain anything, and in the threshold question, whether it is actually new information or not. It's just for you to decide. Thank you.
Ma'am, I'm not an attorney, but I do think I have the right to object. And what I object to as a citizen of the town of Spig Island is the fact that we've now come to the point where we have to have 4 lawyers that have to talk about what used to be citizens and citizens. So we are now paying for my lawyer, their lawyer, the board's lawyer, and the town attorney, who also commented and built on all this. And I just think we have come so far as an island, the change that's happened on this island because of this case is, I object to that.
So I'm gonna turn back to Sam. I mean, there's several ways you can do this. There were recommended findings. I think, we've all looked at the record. In terms of dates, most of what was submitted by either party was the same dates. I think everyone understands the same timeline. You're not here to make legal conclusions or characterize anything that's making findings. There is a recommended set of findings to save us all a little bit of time that Sam can start us off with. Reading those, and if you have things to add or questions to ask or things you disagree with, these are your findings, but we didn't really need to be here for 3 hours to get the record together. So these are facts taken from both parties, but that support the decision that the board made. But again, please add, subtract, do what you want. This is a way to just start you off, so we're not,
Speak up, please.
It's August 20. It's August 21st, 2025. The appellants are James and Ann Gallagher and Norman and Jeffrey Drew. The property is 107 Cottage Road, tax map I01-014.
I put in the top of the document the previous findings, so everything's in one document.
Okay. Yeah, so previous findings of fact.
Not
Just
just
down
number
there.
all this, so everything's on there.
Okay. This? Oh, all the way.
So these are the previous findings.
Right. Oh, skip on that, okay. So, additional findings of fact. Michael and Mary McKee are the owners of 107 Cottage Road, tax map 101014. Ann and James Gallagher are the owners of 113 Cottage Road, and Jeffrey and Norman Drew are the owners of 121 Cottage Road. Both are abutters of 107 Cottage Road. The McKees applied for shoreland project permit on April 25th, 2022 for a, quote, driveway extension and guest house site, end quote, which was approved by the CEO on
Same day.
Sorry, on May 26th.
yeah, they were all.
The record shows that the application, where there's a signature on the bottom, it says April 25th, 2022.
Okay.
And on the top, it says May 26th, 2022.
Okay.
I would just like to say that the CEO's signature is not on here.
So I'm not sure what you're looking at.
I'm looking at, as far as I know, the application for the shoreline project permit is, when it's signed, permit.
So hang on a second.
Unless there's
We are
another
not
document.
debating,
I'm
we are not debating that. We are talking about dates right now.
right,
And the
there's
date
no
of the
date on here.
application of that, date of the application is what it says on the bottom,
Yes,
is what?
April 25th,
Yeah.
2022.
And what's the date on the top?
Where are we getting the May date? That's
What's
what
the
I'm
date
asking.
on the top? Does it say May on the top? Yeah,
It's
in that
not,
box, it says
it
525.
looks like it was a 5 and then it was made a 4.
The report is May 5, so that's 5/26 is the date. So all the parties agree to that, so we're not gonna spend a lot of time on it. Everybody agrees that that's a fact.
Okay. So which was approved by the code enforcement officer, CEO, on 5/25/22.
Yeah, that
Yeah. The McKees applied for a second growth permit on May 9th, 2022 for a quote, single-family accessory guest house, end quote, which was approved by the CEO on May 26th, 2022. The McKees applied for a building permit for a quote, guest house, end quote, on April 25th, 2022, which was approved by the CEO on May 26, 2022. The abutters did not receive direct notice of the issuance of any of these building permits at the time they were issued. The first notice the abutters had of the construction project at 107 Cottage Road was in June, when James Gallagher observed what appeared to be new construction activity at 107 Cottage Road. Mr. Gallagher subsequently attempted to learn what permits had been issued that authorized the work. Mr. Gallagher visited the town office on 3 separate occasions in June 2022. At none of these 3 visits was Gallagher provided with a complete file, and thus was not aware of the permit applications or that permits were issued. At each of these 3 June visits, Mr. Gallagher was told by town employees that the file was unavailable or incomplete for various reasons, including that the file was in the possession of the code enforcement officer. In early July 2022, Mr. Gallagher attempted to reach the code enforcement officer by telephone. The code enforcement officer did not return Mr. Gallagher's call. In early July, Mr. Gallagher again visited the town office and was still unable to obtain the complete file or review any applications or permits for 107 Cottage Road. In mid-July, Mr. Gallagher sought legal advice and representation from a land use attorney. Mr. Gallagher retained Sandra Way, is that okay? In mid to late July 2022. Norma and Jeffrey Drew joined the Gallaghers in seeking legal advice and representation for a land use attorney. On July 22nd, 2022, Attorney Gay requested that the code enforcement officer provide the file. On July 29th, 2022, the code enforcement officer acknowledged receipt of Attorney Gay's request. Attorney Gay and Ann Gallagher both made subsequent follow-up requests. On August 15th, 2022, the Gallaghers and Drews received some documents regarding 107 Cottage Road, but not any building permit. Only a single application for a driveway extension on a guest house site and an application for a guest house. The Gallaghers and Drews learned at the November 3rd, 2022 hearing that the shoreland application they received in August was in fact also the permit, because the code enforcement officer testified that he did not issue a separate permit. The August 15th documents also included older plumbing and electrical permit applications, as well as applications and permits related to a modular home that were issued in 2021. On August 16th, 2022, Nora Drew requested from the code enforcement officer a more detailed building survey. She received no response. On September 9th, 2022, the Gallaghers and Drews obtained a copy of the building permit for the guest house at 107 Cottage Road. The town of Sheboygan Island received the administrative appeal of permit number 22 SZ2, 107 Cottage Road on October 5th, 2022. The appeal is dated September 29th, 2022. That's our additional findings of fact.
Questions, deletions, additions,
Well, just a couple things. The court asked a couple of things that is in the record from our hearing, November 4th, 2022. But aren't specifically called out. For example, they talk about the date when the abutters had constructive notice of permit, which means the date when they should have been able, if they knew how to look somewhere, pull something up, right? That's what constructive means. As opposed to actual.
court's not asking you to make a legal conclusion, they're asking you to.
They're asking us the dates when the
So-
butters
so-
had constructive notice.
So I just want to explain, the actual order says further facts relevant to the determination of good cause. It's not asking for an analysis or legal conclusion regarding those facts, just facts. The decision talks about that there were no findings regarding conduct or relevant dates. So they're asking you to identify relevant dates, not make conclusions of what those dates mean.
And as far as the.
So are there dates in these facts you think are missing?
No, there's, the only thing that's not really addressed is they asked about the extent the CEO's culpable conduct delayed the appeal.
Are there facts regarding that were not on that list that you want?
Well, I think you listed, basically chronologically what occurred, and you can draw some conclusions from that. If there were phone calls that weren't, returned or documents that were missing. But, I mean, at that hearing in November 2022, I think most of the board was unaware that the permit application was permanent. And it's not even signed by the CEO. And I guess the date, it says date received, it doesn't say date issued. So to me, that's very confusing to everybody.
So there's a finding in here on that issue, recommended. It says that, it says that the Gallagher's and Drews learned at the November 3rd hearing that the shoreline application they received in August was in fact also the permit because the CEO testified that he did not issue a separate permit.
Right, okay, good.
If I recall, we received the package that same hearing date,
And it still wasn't.
and so,
Right, we started based on the evening of the hearing.
evening of the hearing.
But that's,
But I think that's already,
That was in your, that was in your previous line.
So-
That was a previous one.
Not-
Exactly.
okay. Lays out a timeline, which is what we were asked to do without interpreting anything in a way.
and also, how long was the deadline extended?
We don't do that.
Well, you just have to do
yes.
the math. I mean, you can see when it was approved and when they appealed. So that's how long the deadline is extended. So you add 30 days to the date it was issued, so 30 days to May 25th and 26th. And then this brings you to June, 24th, 25th, and then so that's the 30 days, that's the deadline for the was in June. And so June to September, so
It's like 96
3
days.
months, a little more than 3 months to be extended. You can conclude that from the facts.
But, interpret when the clock started running or how long to extend it. You just have to say, here's what we found, here's what is contained in the voluminous testimony documents and exhibits from the 2 previous hearing days. And is Mary satisfied that?
Well, if you know, you were satisfied.
I can't think of anything, this is,
There are additional.
these came from the affidavits and just,
And the transfer.
and the transfer, so I think it's about as complete as we can make it. Barbara was on to schedule a hearing on it, so I think I don't know, I'm happy with this. But how about you guys?
I have something, yes, as the new person to the board, I find this very complete and it gave me the outline of what has occurred during this time period.
Yeah, my understanding is that the court, sort of like the way we have to conduct our hearing, they conduct the same way on due cause, which is why they need all that detail. To know what. Correct? We were just asked to find.
We want to understand the basis of the decision, the facts you used. It was very well outlined, actually.
I'm satisfied too that we responded to Justice Anthony's request. Particularly with the additional findings of
And when you say additional, this was all in the record at the last,
Yes.
Exactly.
Yes.
that. Not included in the
But it
findings.
wasn't included in our findings.
Exactly.
Got it. And there are citations to the record. Okay, so before you take a vote, Mr. Dolan stood up, I don't know if there are any objections to what has been discussed. I think something needs to be out and it's not relevant.
I was, thought it would be helpful to pinpoint the page, which in the record, I was referring to some discussion about whether the permit was signed or unsigned.
Yeah.
And, there's two versions of the approved permit, and one's on page 87, volume 1, and one's on page 196,
Okay,
and
here.
signature.
I didn't read this, I
No, 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 that's okay.
so I apologize, that's my fault.
I had, 190, that's the short one, 196, I had it right. So,
There's another version of that on page 87, which is a submission on calendars and Drew's that shows more clearly the permit number.
Yeah.
And also shows the signature.
So that should be the one that's referenced. Okay, with the,
I referred to them both in my submitted, page, volume 1, page 87, volume 1, page 196.
Okay, 87, okay, thank you.
The October 5th date, that sounds not, that's
Yeah,
not.
there's a stamp on the application that says October
Okay.
5th.
Understood. The other thing is, I was wondering if
That was the appeal.
the permittee's conduct, I know the board's decision was really focused on the absence of a scaled plot plan, in part discussing the merits and the findings of Mary Ave. I do think that whether the guest house was built where it was proposed to be built in the sketch versus where the survey showed it is also a relevant consideration for the good cause determination.
Well, the court asked us to talk about timing, so I think that, I understand your objection, but it covered the gamut of things. Okay, I understand.
I'm unclear about this October 5th date, what was that?
It was the date the appeal was actually received, the town
Oh, okay.
stamped it, there was a stamp on it, so, but the actual date on the letter was the 29th, and it said it was by FedEx, so, you know, things take a while to get out here, I guess. So. Alright, so the only, I mean, you're not voting, you're not changing your decision, you're not voting your decision, you're just vote to adopt the additional findings on the.
I make a motion that we adopt the additional findings of fact as part of our record.
That's it, I think as drafted and read into the record with one amendment of adding page 87.
I will second the motion.
All in favor? Okay. We're done, meeting is adjourned at
Thank you for coming.
6 o'clock, yes, thank you.
step over.
Oh, yeah, you're there. If you start running now, Mary,